Guys, welcome to SAT English and Writing channel. This is the first question by me. Before reading the question, I highly recommend you to read this question itself on your own. So let's start the text. Marta Cole and colleagues 2010 Sea Biodiversity Census reported approximately 17,000 species, nearly double the number reported in Carlo Bianchi and Carlo Mori's 2000 census. A difference only partly attributable to the description of new invertebrate species in the interim. Another factor is that the morphological variability of microorganisms is poorly understood, compared to that of vertebrates, invertebrates, plants, and algae, creating uncertainty about how to evaluate microorganisms as species. Researchers' decisions on such matters therefore can be highly consequential. Indeed, the two consensus reported similar counts of vertebrate, plant, and algal species, suggesting that blank. So, before reading the options, I want to explain the text itself. Here it said there are two main consensus. The first one was 22,000. The first one was 2000. Second one was 2010. Mm, in these research, two different scientists approached, and the key difference between them was the description of new invertebrate species. Another factor was variability of microorganisms is poorly understood compared to the vertebrates, invertebrates, plants, and algae. This one, they are also keywords because we have to understand the text. So these two people, these two research, they counted the number of species. However, the second one has a higher number of species than the first one. The difference between them was the description of the invertebrate species. I will explain this. The first research says, hey, invertebrate species is counted in this way, but 2010 says, hey, invertebrate species is counted in completely different way. And because of their two different views, and their count, the number of species is completely huge. The difference between them is completely huge. Another factor was both of the researchers didn't have a clear understanding of microorganisms. Mm, but they understood very well the vertebrates, invertebrates, plants, and algae. However, they didn't understand what really microorganisms are. Maybe they thought they are birds, maybe they are animals, maybe they might have been sea creatures or small animals. They didn't have a clear understanding. Because of misunderstanding, they had problems to evaluate microorganisms as species. In this case, researchers' decisions play a crucial role. Indeed, the two consensus, this means 2000 and 2010, reported similar counts of vertebrate plant and algal species. Okay, they had, here it said, both of the research had the same number of vertebrate plant and algal species. But what about invertebrate species? Did they count in the same way? Of course, no. They counted the invertebrate species in two different ways. To find the answer, let's look through the options. Option A. Cole and colleagues reported a much higher number of species than Bianchi and Mori did, largely due to the inclusion of invertebrate species that had not been described at the time of Bianchi and Mori's census. I think this is not the real answer because here it said, where is um, ah, a difference only partly attributable to the description of new invertebrate species. Actually, um, uh, actually, Martagol and Carlo, both of them counted in invertebrate, vertebrate plants and algae. Both of them counted all of the species. These four types of species. However, this is not because of the fact that the exclusion of invertebrate species in in the period of Bianchi-Merck census. It's not because of the inclusion or exclusion of invertebrate species. So let's eliminate this answer. Option B. Some differences observed in microorganisms, okay, may have been treated as variations within species by Bianchi and Murray, okay, but treated as indicative of distinct species by Colin and colleagues. I think this is true answer because if Colin and colleagues divide all species, vertebrate, invertebrate plants, and algae, distinct species, they say vertebrates are completely different animals, invertebrates, completely different animals, plants, and algae, completely different creatures. In this way, they excluded microorganisms because they are too small. Micro means small because of their different type. They excluded these creatures. However, when it comes to Bianchi and Murray, they included microorganisms because they thought there's a main type of animal, but they have different appearances. For example, vertebrates, invertebrates, plants, and algae, all of them were burned by a single large animal like mammals. But because of adaptations or other something factors, another factor, they have different structures, forms, or appearances. And this this is the same thing for where is this? This is the same thing for microorganisms. Because of their differences in their research effort, Bianchi More counted more microorganisms. They considered microorganisms as a part of these animals. I think this is answer. Bianchi Mori may have been less sensitive to the degree of morphological variation displayed within a typical species of microorganism. No, this is not true answer because here it said they may have been less sensitive to the degree of morphological variation. I think there's nothing about there might be something about morphological, but there's nothing about they have been less sensitive to there's no comparison between Bianchi and Cole. There is a comparison between their researches. The absence of clarity regarding how to differentiate among species of microorganisms may have resulted in colonial understanding. Nope, I think this is not true answer too. Because of course they didn't have a clear understanding about how to differentiate among species of microorganisms. But this is not the true factor that resulted in Cole and colleagues underestimating the number of microorganisms species. Underestimating means excluding, um, counting in the wrong way. I think this is not the main factor because they already mentioned two factors as the main reason to different numbers, to different research, but it's not their poor understanding is not factor. Therefore, let's eliminate. Check. We found the answer.